the Lok Sabha, I said Lok Sabha had two kinds of members, nominated members and elected members. First of all, go there and change this provision. Now there is no nominated members in the Lok Sabha. It has been amended by the 104th Constitutional Amendment. (104th Constitutional Amendment), which was passed last month itself in the winter session, and accordingly this has been done away with. This provision has been done away with. 104th Constitutional Amendment. Now only elected members in the Rajya Sabha, no nominated members. Sorry, Lok Sabha, no nominated members. No nominated members in the Lok Sabha anymore. There are only elected members. There are only elected members. Clear? Now, the second was with respect to ordinance making power of the president. And I said that both the house has not to be in session. Only then the president can pass and can promulgate an ordinance. There needs to be a change there. That is, when both the house is not in session, which means even if one house is not in session, the president can promulgate an ordinance. Clear? Even if one house is not in session, the president can promulgate an ordinance. Done this? Yes. No. This is not 104. This is different. 104th Constitutional Amendment only deals with this. Not even now. Even if one house is not in session, this is already there. Now, what I said was that both the house shall not be in session, but that is not the case. Even if one house is not in session, the president can promulgate an ordinance. Clear? Done this? If you are not getting where you have written this, right now, just mention it in a bracket and class ke baad dekh lena. Now, coming to the current discussion. In the last class, we were discussing the disqualification of members. The last provision that we were discussing was disqualification of members. Now, disqualification of members. Now, what we have seen here till now is disqualification of members of the parliament has been mentioned under Article 102 of the Constitution. Article 102 of the Constitution gives some grounds on which an individual can be disqualified. Among those grounds, we have discussed that if he is holding an office of profit. Now, what was office of profit? We have seen that in the Shibu Soren case, the Supreme Court has defined what is office of profit. Otherwise, neither the Constitution nor any law defines what is office of profit. Then we have also seen the ideas of, if he is an undischarged insolvent, of an unsound mind, etc., etc. These provisions we have seen. Now, the last provision that was there was that on any grounds on which the parliament, if suppose there is if there is a law that is made by the parliament, and under those grounds also an individual can be disqualified from being the member of the house. Now, in these in this case, there are two very important part of our discussion. First was the anti-defection law. Anti-defection law. Did we discuss this anti-defection law? Yes. 10th schedule of the Constitution, 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, and we had seen what are the provisions of anti-defection. That is, no independent candidate, once he is elected, he cannot join a political party. Similarly, an individual who is a nominated member cannot join a political party after 6 months. Similarly, an individual who is a legislative party member cannot resign from the political party. He also cannot join any other political party, and he cannot defy the whip of the political party, also with respect to either when it comes to voting on a bill or when it comes to presence of that individual in the legislature. Clear? There were some exceptions that we had discussed. That is, if a political party, minimum 2/3 of the members of the political party defect and they split from the political party, or for that matter merge with any other political party, or for that matter when we talk about the presiding officers of the legislature, whether it is the Speaker of the Lok Sabha or the Deputy Speaker or the Speaker or Deputy Speaker of legislative assemblies, state legislative assemblies, or the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, or the Chairman or Deputy Chairman of state legislative councils. If they resign from a political party but do not join any another political party and rejoin the same political party from which they have resigned, once they have decided to leave the position, they are also not eligible for disqualification. Clear? Now, after this discussion, we had added a discussion on paragraph 7 of the anti-defection law, which specifically dealt with this provision that it is the presiding officer of the house which is the final authority with respect to disqualification. It is the presiding officer who decides on the political defections. That means under the 10th schedule. Under the 10th schedule, this decision is made by the presiding officer. Otherwise, in other cases, that is under Article 102 of the Constitution, disqualification is done by the President on the recommendation of the Election Commission. Now, we had also dealt with a case in which the Supreme Court has upheld the validity of the anti-defection law, 1992 case, Kohoto-Holhogan case, we had seen that. And in that case, the Supreme Court has upheld the constitutional validity of the anti-defection law, Anti-Defection Act, but has declared some part of paragraph 7. Now, some part of paragraph 7 which specifically dealt with what? Which specifically dealt with that the presiding officer's decision to disqualify an individual, his decision is final and binding. That idea of final and binding was held unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, as the Supreme Court says it takes away the power of judicial review from the court. We have then come into the critical analysis of the law, and in critical analysis of the law we had seen that the law is silent on the on suspended members. So what happens if a member is suspended? The law does not prescribe for that. We have also seen that the law gives the power to the presiding officer, and in India presiding officers are not a neutral body, so they are politically, this power is politically used. Now, there is a political misuse of this power. We have seen the case of Karnataka, wherein the speaker did not accept the resignation of 15 members just because once they resigned, the BJP was the BJP was going to be in majority. So the speaker did not accept the resignation. So if you look at the speaker of, or for that matter the presiding officer of the house, presiding officer of the house in India, unlike the House of Commons, is not a neutral body, and hence this power that has been given, it needs an amendment. Similarly, we have also discussed that how, because of the ineffectiveness of the house, Now we have seen that the power that is there because of the implementation of anti-defection law, what has happened? The political parties have the power to issue whips, and such whips cannot be defied by any other. No, cannot be defied by any political members of the political party. And that is the reason why to maintain party discipline, what we have seen is that this anti-defection and the issue of whips is basically used, but it is defeating the purpose of effectiveness of the parliament to hold the council of ministers accountable for their action, because members are now the members are now following party lines rather than acting as representatives of the people. And accordingly, we have seen that whips should be issued only for no confidence motion or confidence motion or budget, passing of the budget, or for that matter vote of thanks. Have you written this? No, then write this, that a reform that is required, reform that is required, just write reforms. Anti-defection should be extended only in cases of confidence and no confidence motion, confidence and no confidence motion, comma, passing of the budget, and passing the vote of, passing the right in this manner, motion of thanks to the president, motion of thanks to the president, as is the case in other democratic countries, where whips are used only when the confidence of the council of ministers, is in question. Otherwise, whips are not used. It's as simple as that. Whips are not used. If you look at certain examples, like if you see the US, how laws are being made in US, and the mechanism of US. In US also there is something called as a whip. You will find that in the House of Representatives, every political party has a officer who is responsible for maintaining the party discipline. He is also called as the whip. But if you look at US and how it works there, in that case, because it is a presidential form of government, so the government's majority or confidence is never in question. However, their whips are not issued by the executive in this manner on party lines, and the members do not follow party lines always. Like if you look at the current government, that is the Trump administration that is there, the Trump administration has been trying to pass a law which is called as their version of a health care, which was previously passed by the previous president of US, Obama. He had passed something called as an Obama care, and when Trump was campaigning for his presidential elections, he campaigned on this line that as soon as he becomes the president, he is going to amend Obama care, and he is going to come out with his own version of a health care policy, which he has not been able to do until very recently. That means before the month of August, the Republicans enjoyed majority not only in the Senate but also in the House of Representatives. And the president was also of the Republican Party, but still he was not able to pass a bill. Why? Because people, the representatives there, were not voting on party lines. They were voting for their constituency. So if the members of their, the citizens of their constituency did not agree to the policy that was proposed by Trump, the members voted against their own party. This is not the case when it comes to India. Why? Because in India, when it comes to ideas such as whip, it is issued, it is maintained and it is issued. Though it is dependent upon the discretion of a political party, that yes, when the political party decides to issue a whip, but generally you will find that it is more often used than in any other country. And this is what is needed to be changed. That only when the government's confidence is in question, that whether the members they enjoy the confidence of the house or not, council, only then we should be able to, or we should evoke this idea of whip, and not always, but in India it is more or less done almost always. Like again, Article 370, when it was being amended, so the whip was issued by the BJP for all the members of the BJP to be present and to vote in favor. Later on, it was also ensured that they vote in favor of the amendment, whatever amendment was to be done. And even when it came to the reorganization of J&K, that is not the case elsewhere. So there it is issued, it is sparingly used. In India it is very often used. This should not be the case. Clear? Now, this is where we end our discussion on this anti-defection law. Now you have written something called as motion of thanks. Because you have written this motion of thanks, let me discuss what this motion of thanks actually is. This motion of thanks is related to a practice which in India is called as presidential address. Presidential address. So, President addresses both the houses of the Parliament in a joint sitting. In a joint sitting after every general elections, that means when a new Lok Sabha is constituted, the first sitting starts with presidential address, and every first session of the new year. So every first session in the new year starts with a presidential address, and every newly constituted Lok Sabha, it starts with a presidential address. Now, during this presidential address, it is the president who acts as the presiding officer. And it is the president who is responsible for maintaining discipline in the house. It is the president who is responsible for maintaining discipline in the house. This is not considered as a sitting of the legislature. It is not considered as a sitting of the legislature. So we cannot say this is a special sitting or this is a joint sitting. No. It is not considered as a sitting of the House. The President addresses both the houses jointly. Jointly. The President's address is prepared by the Council of Ministers. The presidential address is prepared by the Council of Ministers, and it is binding on the President. It is binding on the President to read the address prepared by the Council of Ministers, which means the President cannot skip anything, the President cannot amend anything. The address is prepared by the Council of Ministers and has to be read by the President as it is. It has to be read as it is by the President. Clear? It is a very formal occasion and is compared to the Crown's address in UK. Crown's address in UK. Both of them are compared. Have you understood what is this joint address? What is presidential address? Now, after the presidential address is over, both the houses meet separately. After the presidential address is, both the houses meet separately and pass a motion of thanks. They pass a motion of thanks. That means they thank the President for the address. They thank the President for the address. If the motion is defeated in the Lok Sabha, if the motion is defeated in the Lok Sabha, it is considered that the Council of Ministers do not enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha. It is considered that the Council of Ministers do not enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha, which means every year the parliamentary session starts with the Council of Ministers proving their majority in the Lok Sabha, because they have to pass motion of thanks, and if the motion of thanks is defeated, it means that the Council of Ministers do not enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha, and hence passing of motion of thanks amounts to the Council of Ministers enjoying confidence of the Lok Sabha. This is what it means, that as soon as the motion of thanks is passed, it means that the Council of Ministers enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha. Because you can see who prepares this. It is the Council of Ministers. So when we pass this motion of thanks, it means that the members of the Parliament, they agree to this presidential address. That is the reason why they are thanking the President for this address. And this is what is motion of thanks. This is what is motion of thanks. With, you will find that as soon as the legislature meets, the new Lok Sabha has been constituted and the president addresses the new Lok Sabha and the motion of thanks has been passed in the Lok Sabha, it means that the Council of Ministers, they enjoy the majority in the confidence of the Lok Sabha. Clear? Just a minute. This presidential address that is there, this address is nothing but a policy statement. That means this address basically comprises of what have been the achievements of the Council of Ministers and what the Council of Ministers are intending to do. So they will, this address will comprise of, this address that is there, it will comprise of all the steps that the government has taken and what are the achievements of those steps and what are certain what you can say steps that the government is willing to take or is intending to take. That is something that is mentioned in this presidential address, and that is the reason why we say it is nothing but a policy statement. Clear? This is what is motion of thanks. Every newly constituted Lok Sabha and every first sitting of the new year starts with this presidential address. Now you will find that in late January and early February the budget session starts. That is the first session, and the budget session will start with a presidential address. It will be widely covered in the newspapers when there will be a red carpet welcome to the president, in the joint sitting. He will act as a presiding officer. He will address both the houses. He will read that address and a motion of thanks will be passed. Yes, now.
So what if
it does not mean anything. It does not mean anything because Article 75, what does it say? Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. So if the presidential address is, this motion of thanks that is there, if it is in any way defeated or amended in the Rajya Sabha, because it is done. If you look at the initial 2 or 3 years of the previous government, that is previous NDA 2014 to 2019, in the initial first 2-3 years, every presidential address was amended by the Rajya Sabha. Every presidential address was amended by the Rajya Sabha. But in Rajya Sabha, the status of the Council of Ministers are not affected. The status of the Council of Ministers is not affected. Why? Because they are collectively responsible only to the Lok Sabha, not to the Rajya Sabha. Understood this? This is what is called as presidential address and motion of thanks. Next, we come to vacancies of the Parliament. Article 101 of the Constitution, which deals with vacancies. Vacancies in the Parliament. This topic is not important for your mains examination, it's important for your prelims examination. There are some facts here and you should know them. So how is the vacancies, how it actually happens? Let's see that. First point. No person shall be the member of both the houses of the Parliament, if an individual is elected to both the houses, if the individual is elected to both the houses and does not vacate one of his seats within 14 days after having become the member, it is deemed that he has vacated the seat he has vacated the seat in the house to which he was first elected. Recently, after general elections, you will find two of our cabinet ministers. Amit Shah was a member of Rajya Sabha, he was elected to the Lok Sabha. Similarly, Smriti Irani was also a member of Rajya Sabha, she was elected to the Lok Sabha. So in this case, because both for a brief period they are elected to both the houses and they do not vacate the seat in one of the houses, it will be deemed that they have vacated that seat in the house which they were first elected. So 14-day period is there. If you don't vacate one of the seats, so it will be deemed, it will be assumed that you have vacated the seat in which you were first elected. Second point, if a person is elected, to the parliament and to the state legislature and if he does not vacate one of his seat within 14 days, it is deemed that he has vacated the seat to the parliament. So state legislature and parliament, so it will be deemed that you have vacated your seat in the parliament, not in the state legislature, in the parliament. Third, if he is subject to disqualification, subjected to disqualification under Article 102, obviously if you are disqualified, your seat falls vacant. Third, if he resigns his seat by writing to the presiding officer of the house, so the resignation is given to whom? The presiding officer of the house, not to the president, not to the political party from which you are elected to. So there was a case. What happened was, there was one of the individuals of the Congress party. This happened in 2009 or 10. So there was allegation against him of some kind of he had said something in the parliament or something like this. So what he did was, he resigned, he gave his resignation to Sonia Gandhi. It does not, that the resignation does not count. Why? Because resignation is to the presiding officer. If you resign to the presiding officer, only then your resignation is accepted. Recently, Mayawati had resigned from Rajya Sabha. She had submitted her resignation to the presiding officer. Clear? Next. If a member abstains from proceedings of the House for a period of 60 days continuously, without the permission of the presiding officer, he loses his seat. And don't write it in next point, write it in next paragraph. Under the Representation of People's Act, 1951, if a member if a member is elected to the Lok Sabha from two constituencies, and does not resign from one constituency within 14 days, it is deemed that he has vacated both the seats. It is deemed that he has vacated both the seats. Clear? So not one of them, both the seats. This is how vacancies are mentioned in Article 101. Now, because we were talking about disqualification and vacancies, there is one more thing that I would like you to know under the Representation of Peoples Act. That is Section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act. Was this Section 8 in news recently? When I say recently, I mean around 6 months back. Section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act. What is this Section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act? This is a very frequent, this is something that is very frequent. It appears in the newspaper. Yes. What is Section 8? Section 8 of Representation of Peoples Act also deals with disqualification of members. This also deals with disqualification of members. So, what does Section 8 say? It says that any individual who is convicted of a criminal offence and has to serve a sentence of at least 2 years is disqualified for an additional period of 6 years. Additional period of 6 years, which means the time that he serves his sentence plus 6 years. So that 6 years time that is there, it is considered to be a cooling off period. So whatever sentence he has to serve, he will serve that sentence and he will further be disqualified for an additional period of 6 years. This has been mentioned under Section 8. And Section 8 of the Constitution also further details, that is, if you look at Section 8, Clause A, B and C, it deals with what are the offences on which, it deals with the criminal offences. For which you can be disqualified. Which you can be disqualified. Any individual who is elected, if he is convicted of a criminal offence and is subjected to serve a sentence of imprisonment for 2 years, at least 2 years, so he is further disqualified for 6 years. So he serves the sentence plus 6 years. Why was this provision in news? Assam Chief Minister. Sikkim's Chief Minister. Yes. What was the provision? What happened? So why is he the chief minister still? The election commission has reduced the cooling off period. Yes. Now there are two additional ideas that you need to know here. For those who do not know this, it means you are not reading the newspapers. Either, see, there are two things. First of all, you have started this, your preparation recently. In that case, it is fine. But if you have been here 6-7 months, in that case you should have known this. So what had happened was that the chief minister of Sikkim, he was held guilty of a corruption case which happened in 1996. He was then the minister of animal husbandry then, and in a certain case he was held guilty, and he was to serve a sentence of more than 2 years. So he served that sentence, and he had to be additionally disqualified for 6 years. This is what the law says. But if you look at the section 11 of the same law, section 11 of the law says that the election commission is empowered to reduce the cooling off period. That is, this 6 year that is there, this can be reduced by the election commission. See, first mistake that you will make here is that you will say that the election commission can reduce his sentence. No. Whatever sentence he has to serve, he will have to serve that sentence. That means if the court says 3 years of imprisonment, the election commission has no authority to reduce the sentence. The election commission only has the authority to do what? Only has the authority to reduce the additional period or the cooling off period. And this is what the election commission did. However, the election commission is empowered to reduce this cooling off period for only those offences that are mentioned except for section 8 clause A. Except for individuals found guilty of offences mentioned under section 8 clause A. That means this cooling off period cannot be reduced for anyone. Only those individuals who have been either found guilty for offences mentioned under section 8B or section 8C. And in this case, he was found guilty of corruption, and the law that under which he was to be for which he was found guilty, that law also had been repealed. The law was repealed. उसे खत्म कर दिया गया था. So the law was repealed. So the election commission says that the law has been repealed, and because he was not guilty of the provisions under 8A, so his cooling off period was reduced from 6 years to 13 months. He only served a cooling off period of 13 months, and that was it. Clear? So he is now the chief minister of Sikkim again. He has again become the chief minister of Sikkim, but because of this very provision. Clear? And also because he supported the BJP. This was also one of the reasons. But the one more very important aspect of this discussion is related to section 8 clause D. Section 8 clause D. Now we'll be dealing with this separately. This is a very important, it's a very important decision. What does this say? if you look at the original provision of this very section, it said that an individual, it actually differentiated between an individual who was to contest elections to the legislature and an individual who was already a member of legislature. That means if an elected member, the provision said, if an elected member is found guilty of a criminal offence and the court has ordered him to serve a sentence of at least 2 years, he is not automatically disqualified. He is not automatically disqualified. Rather, he is given an opportunity to appeal in the higher court. And until and unless his appeal is disposed of, until unless his appeal is disposed of, he will continue as a member of the legislature. He will continue as a member of the legislature. So section 8, the provision D that was there, here it differentiated between an individual who was contesting elections and an individual who has already been elected to the house. An individual who is contesting elections, if he is found guilty of an offence, criminal offence, and has to serve a sentence of at least 2 years, he is automatically disqualified. So his nomination paper will be rejected. He cannot contest elections. Even if he is contesting elections, in that case, even on the election day, that means till the time he is not been elected to the house, he will be disqualified from the legislature. He will be disqualified. He will not be able to contest elections. On the other hand, if an individual is already elected to the house, he has already been elected to the house, in that case he will not automatically be disqualified. Rather, he will be given the opportunity to appeal, and until unless his appeal is disposed of, till that time he will remain and serve as a member of the house. This provision was held unconstitutional by the Supreme Court as a violation of Article 14 of the Fundamental Rights. It was said that this is a clear violation of principle of equality. This is a clear violation of principle of equality, and the Supreme Court disqualified, the Supreme Court held this provision to be unconstitutional. So today the provision is, if you are a member or if you are contesting elections, it does not matter. If you are held guilty of a criminal offence and are liable to serve a sentence of at least 2 years, you are automatically disqualified. And that is the reason why you will find that there are various examples here. You will find that there is when Jayalalitha was alive, when she was serving as the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, there was a decision of I think the Andhra Pradesh High Court or something like that, or one of the courts. They held her guilty for inappropriate expenditure or something like that, and she was disqualified from the house. Later on, it was appealed in the Karnataka High Court, and the Karnataka High Court found that she was not. The High Court actually overruled the decision of the lower court, allowing her to continue. So she again contested elections and became the member of legislature and again became the Chief Minister. Similarly, you will find Lalu Prasad Yadav, who has been convicted of fodder scam. So he has to serve a sentence of 4 years and further is disqualified for 6 years. And very recently, when Hardik Patel, he was also contesting general elections from the ticket of Congress party. Before he actually, he had filed his nomination papers. He was the Congress candidate. But before the elections were scheduled and held, he was convicted of an offence, rioting. He was the leader of that Patidar movement, etc. And he was held guilty of rioting, etc. And he was disqualified. So he was not allowed to contest elections. Clear? So this is what section 8 and section 11 of Representation of People's Act actually say. Very likely to be a question. Very likely to be a question. So this year coming mains examination, it's very likely that there is a question asked on Representation of People's Act, because it is a part of your syllabus. Done? Understood this idea? Please go through section 8. There are details of offences. What are the offences? I didn't find it useful to discuss it in the class, but you should go through it. So go through section 8, go through section 11 of the Representation of People's Act 1951. Done? Next, we moved, yes. Section 8D, you want to write something? Okay, you can write this. Section 8D earlier provided for and discriminated between an individual contesting elections and an individual who has already been elected to the legislature, as it stated that an individual who is a member of legislature and is convicted of a criminal offence will be given the opportunity to appeal to the higher judicial body and will continue as a member of legislature till his appeal is disposed of. As a member of legislature till his appeal is disposed of. This provision was held unconstitutional. By the Supreme Court on the grounds that it was a violation of Article 14, that is right to equality. Clear? Informally speaking, there are two things that you can understand here as well. First of all, when this decision was given by the Supreme Court was very much criticized because of this. Why? Because the Supreme Court was criticized on this ground that if you look at Article 14 also dictates that no individual is to be treated equally if the individual is under unequal circumstances. So how can this be a violation of equality when an individual who is contesting elections and an individual who is already a member of legislature, they are in two different circumstances and positions. So how can this get a similar treatment? So it was criticized also, but the Supreme Court stood by its decision, and this has been declared unconstitutional. Clear? Give a subheading, right? Sessions of the Parliament. Sessions of the Parliament. No, not on this ground. It was again Representation of People's Act. It said that an individual, Section 8 says that any individual who is convicted of a criminal offence. So you will find that Representation of People's Act also says that if you are dismissed from service, from a public service, in that case, if you are to be elected, if you are filing for your nomination to be elected as a representative, you will have to produce a letter of the Election Commission certifying that you were not held guilty of any criminal offence or, for that matter, corruption. He was not able to produce that certificate, and that was the reason why his nomination was rejected. He was not disqualified, his nomination was rejected. Clear? Now, sessions of the Parliament. Basically, there are three sessions of the Parliament: the budget session, the monsoon session and the winter session. So, the budget session has the primary objective of passing the budget. The budget session is divided, it is the first session and it is divided into two parts. First, presentation of budget, first part, then there is a recess or break of around 4 weeks, and then there is passing of the budget. There are two parts here. Why? Because after the first part, that means after the presentation of the budget and a general discussion on the budget is over, after that what happens is that the provisions of the budget itself is sent to various parliamentary committees. Now there is something called as departmental standing committees of the Parliament, and the budget is referred to the departmental standing committees. Once the budget is referred to the departmental standing committees, these committees are given a period of 4 weeks to to give its recommendation on the provisions of the budget. And after a 4-week period, in light of the recommendations that are given by the departmental standing committees, voting is done. So budget session with the primary objective of passing the budget is divided into two parts. Second session is the monsoon session. The monsoon session is generally, it is conducted around the month of July and August. Then there is a winter session, and the winter session is considered to be the shortest session among these three. Clear? So budget session, monsoon session and winter session. Then there are some special sessions of the Parliament that can also be held. One such special session is mentioned under Article 352, when the Lok Sabha meets to disapprove the continuance of national emergency. We have already discussed that. Then there can also be some special sessions that can be called by the President, and it is completely up to the President, depending upon the nature of the job that the Parliament has. Some special sessions can also be called. Like, so during the Kargil war, there was a special session called, and it was what you can say closed session of the Parliament. So whatever decisions were taken in the Parliament that day, it was not discussed with the media or the press. So the government laid down a strategy of how they are going to counter the offensive that was shown by Pakistan, and it was not discussed in the House. So such special sessions can also be called for. Then there is something called as proroguing the House. Now what is meant by proroguing the House? Proroguing the legislature, proroguing the House or proroguing the Parliament means that now the Parliament is on a break, which means after the monsoon session is over, we say that the House has been prorogued, and then it will be summoned again for after the budget session in the monsoon session, and after the monsoon session in the winter session. So this is continuously, it is going on. So it is called as proroguing the House. Then there is something called as adjournment. You must have heard about something called as adjournment. Right now you will find that in the since this Lok Sabha has been constituted, new Lok Sabha has been constituted, the proceedings of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha is much more civilized. But this is not something that is natural to Indian Parliament. See, you will find that it is very uncivilized way in which the parliamentarians tend to behave, and that compels the presiding officer of the House to adjourn the Houses for a specific period, like to suppose for 4 hours, 5 hours, or to the next day. So there is a difference between adjournment and proroguing. Adjournment is done by the presiding officer. When we say proroguing the house, it is done by the president. Clear? Prorogation is done by the president. Adjournment is done by the presiding officer. Once the house is prorogued, it can be summoned only by the president. Whereas once the house is adjourned, it is adjourned for a brief period and the president need not interfere there. Then there is also something called as dissolving the Lok Sabha. Now, Rajya Sabha is the permanent house and hence Rajya Sabha is not dissolved. Clear? Rajya Sabha is not dissolved. If you remember our discussion, they have a tenure of members, have a tenure of 6 years, and the elections are conducted in such a manner that every 2 years time, at least 1/3 of the members of the Rajya Sabha, they complete their 6-year tenure. They complete their 6-year tenure. Rajya Sabha is the permanent house, it does not get dissolved. So only the Lok Sabha is dissolved. It has a 5-year tenure, and after every 5 years Lok Sabha has to be dissolved. It is compulsory for the Lok Sabha to be dissolved and a new Lok Sabha to be constituted. However, during emergencies, this dissolution can be postponed also. It can be postponed for 1 year at a time for unlimited period. We have already discussed that as well. Clear? So this is dissolving the Lok Sabha. Now give a subheading and write bills. This is not much here. You need to understand what is the difference between proroguing, adjournment, dissolution. Next, bills. First is an ordinary bill. See, there are 4 types of bills. When we talk about bills, there are 4 types of bills: ordinary bills, money bill, financial bill, and constitutional amendment bill. So let's see these 4 kinds of bill. First is the ordinary bill. You can write this is not much to explain here. It is very important that you remember these facts. Ordinary bill, write down. It is a bill which deals with ordinary matters. It is a bill that deals with ordinary matters. Ordinary matters, that is any bill which is not a money bill. No, that was only an introduction. This is a much detailed discussion. Any bill that is not a money bill, or a financial bill, or a constitutional amendment bill, is considered to be an ordinary bill. Such a bill does not require a prior recommendation of the president to be introduced in either of the house. In brackets write except Article 3. So an ordinary bill that is introduced under Article 3. What was Article 3? Change in area, boundaries, name of a state. That requires the prior recommendation of the president. Otherwise, ordinary bill do not require the prior recommendation of the president. Clear? Both the houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, enjoy equal legislative powers. Therefore, there can be a deadlock. between the two houses, over the passage of the ordinary bill, it requires simple majority to be passed. It requires simple majority to be passed, and the president enjoys veto powers. With respect to ordinary bill. Second is money bill. So this is an ordinary bill. We had discussed this idea before also, that what kind of majority is required, whether the president enjoys veto powers or not, whether constitutional deadlock between the two houses can happen or not. All these things we had discussed earlier in case of ordinary bill. More importantly, money bill. The second is money bill. Under Article 110 of the Constitution. It has been mentioned under Article 110. It states, Article 110, it states, a bill which exclusively deals with one or more of the following matters, qualify as a money bill. These matters are: first, the imposition, abolition or regulation of a tax. Imposition, abolition or regulation of a tax. Second, the borrowing of money or giving any guarantee by the government of India. Third, the custody of the consolidated fund or contingency fund and any deposit or withdrawal of money from such a fund. Underline contingency and consolidated. I am coming to what this fund is. Next, any appropriation of money out of the Consolidated Fund of India. Appropriation means withdrawal. So any withdrawal that is made from consolidated fund. Next, declaring any expenditure to be charged expenditure on the consolidated fund Next, the receipt of money on account of Consolidated Fund of India, receipt of money on account of Consolidated Fund of India or public accounts of India, Underline Public Accounts of India. Also underline, just before this you have written charged expenditure. Underline that, charged expenditure. And the last point here, any matter incidental to any of the matters above mentioned. Any matter incidental to any of the matters above mentioned. Clear? So these are the provisions that are mentioned under Article 110. Along with this, there are some other other criterias that have also been mentioned for a bill to become a money bill. What is it? Right? A money bill can be introduced only on the recommendation of the President, and only in the Lok Sabha. It shall bear a certificate of the Speaker declaring the bill to be a money bill. The decision of the Speaker here is final and binding. And the Lok Sabha enjoys overriding powers in the passage of money bill. It requires a simple majority. President cannot use veto powers. Clear? So see, you have underlined 2 or 3 important provisions here. First of all, you have underlined what is a consolidated fund, what is contingency fund, what is Public Accounts of India, and charged expenditures. Consolidated Fund of India has been mentioned under Article 266 of the Constitution. And it is the main fund of the Government of India. So when we talk about the receipts and expenditures, of the government, it takes place from the Consolidated Fund of India. Now the expenditures that are done from the consolidated fund, these expenditures can be classified into 2. Expenditures that are charged on the consolidated fund and expenditures that are made from the consolidated fund. Charged expenditure means the Parliament can debate and discuss such an expenditure but cannot vote on it. The Parliament can debate and discuss such expenditures but it cannot vote on such expenditures. Expenditure made means they can debate and discuss and they can also vote. So some expenditures are charged expenditures. There are some limitations that the Parliament has over such expenditures. Why? because such expenditures cannot be disallowed. आप रोक नहीं सकते हो. You cannot disallow such an expenditure. You can debate it, discuss it, but you cannot disallow it. On the other hand, those expenditures which are considered to be the part of expenditures made from, they can be debated, discussed and be disallowed. Clear? This is a difference between charged expenditures and the meaning of what is charged expenditure. Next is contingency fund. It is mentioned under Article 267 of the Constitution. It is mentioned under Article 267 of the Constitution. Contingency fund. It is created by an act of the Parliament. It is created by an act of the Parliament which means unlike consolidated fund which has constitutional basis and the constitution conceives of it to be a mandatory fund, contingency fund comes into effect only if there is a law passed by the Parliament creating such a fund. Accordingly, a law was passed in the year 1951 and Contingency Fund of India was created. This fund is at the disposal of the President of India. This fund is at the disposal of the President of India. See, you can see here, this fund is at the disposal of whom? This fund is at the disposal of, consolidated fund is at the disposal of Parliament. So Parliament authorizes expenditure. Here it is the President who can take up expenditure. However, it is subject to parliamentary approval. It is subject to parliamentary approval. So the President may provide for a certain sum of money, but it will be given only if the Parliament agrees that there is it's not that the President can give me that money. That cannot happen. As the name suggests, contingency fund. So only in the time of contingencies. Clear? Previously there was, the money every year there was around 2 crore, 5 crore rupees that was it was included in this fund. Right now it is somewhere around 500 crores or something like that. Then there is something called as a public fund or called as Public Accounts of India. This is also mentioned under Article 267. This is also mentioned under Article 267. And here the money that is deposited, this money is deposited or it is there in the in government accounts where the government acts as a banker. When the government acts as a banker. This works on executive action. This money that is there, it is on executive action and not on the action of the Parliament, not on parliamentary action. See, whatever we pay, like there is a fine that is paid, suppose. Okay. If that fine, the money that is coming from this fine, if it has a certain aspect of it, if it has to go to suppose the union government, so it will be deposited where? In the public accounts. It is deposited in the public accounts. Similarly, You will find we tend to keep our money in the bank, like SBI or any governmental bank that is there. So public accounts of India is also a part of treasury. So whatever money you keep, like if you suppose come up with a fixed deposit, and it is done in suppose a government bank, that money is deposited in the public accounts. That money is deposited in the public accounts, because obviously government submits some part of it as CRR and all these things. So there, that money that is there, it is in such an account. So wherever you can, at any given point of time, if you can withdraw such a money, so the parliament cannot, you cannot wait for the approval of the parliament that the 5,000 रुपए निकालना और parliament उसके लिए approve करेगा. That cannot happen. That will not work. So that kind of money that is there, it goes to the public accounts of India. Clear? So if you look at Article 265, Article 266, Article 267 of the Constitution, these are very important financial provisions. Article 265 of the Constitution says that no money can be appropriated from the Consolidated Fund of India without an appropriation act passed by the Parliament. So any money that is available for the executive to spend, when will the executive spend that money? Is the Prime Minister of India, does he become the owner of a treasury? No. Any money that the executive gets that money only when the Parliament approves it. And that procedure of approval that is there, all the main account that is there, it is the consolidated fund. So generally the expenditures are made from there, but there is also an existence of contingency and public accounts of India. Understood this? This is what is meant by consolidated fund, contingency fund, public accounts of India, and charged expenditures. When the money bill is passed by because you have written, it is always introduced in the Lok Sabha. So once it is introduced in the Lok Sabha and it is passed by the Lok Sabha, it goes to the Rajya Sabha. And what you have written is that Rajya Sabha, the Lok Sabha enjoys overriding powers, which means the Rajya Sabha has very limited powers, and there cannot be a constitutional deadlock between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha in case of a money bill. It can happen in an ordinary bill. It cannot happen in a money bill. When we say why it cannot happen in a money bill, because as soon as the Lok Sabha passes the bill and it goes to the Rajya Sabha has 4 options. First, pass the bill. If the Rajya Sabha passes the bill, it goes to the President. Second, the Rajya Sabha defeats the bill. If the Rajya Sabha defeats the bill, it is deemed that it has been passed by both the houses. Third, Rajya Sabha does not take any action for 14 days. After the expiry of 14 days, it is again deemed that both the houses have passed the bill. And fourth, Rajya Sabha can suggest amendments. If Rajya Sabha suggests amendments, it goes back to the Lok Sabha, and the Lok Sabha can accept or reject one or more amendments. So it can either reject all the amendments, it can accept all the amendments, it can accept some of the amendments, and if they reject or accept amendments and pass the bill again, it is deemed that both the houses have passed the bill. So what do we see? That Rajya Sabha does not, by virtue of its position, does not have the authority to single-handedly either amend the bill or reject the bill. And that is the reason why we say Lok Sabha has overriding powers. Clear? Understood this idea? Any doubt that you have? See, Rajya Sabha has no powers. Just understand it in this manner. What is the maximum that the Rajya Sabha can do? Delay the bill for 14 days. This is the power that Rajya Sabha has. Neither it has the power to reject the bill, nor it has the power to amend the bill. Even if it suggests amendments, it is not an amendment until unless Lok Sabha approves it. So neither it has the power to amend the bill, nor does it have the power to reject the bill. It only has the power to delay the bill for 14 days. That's it. Clear? Third, financial bill. And obviously in money bill, the President does not have the power to exercise veto. They do not have the power to exercise veto. The money will not be given. The money will not, see, it generally does not happen. First of all, it is sparingly used. Contingency fund is not used in this manner. Contingency fund is only used when there is a natural disaster or something like that, and the president visits there. So it will be, it will be expected that because the president has visited such a place, so president will give some kind of a grant or something like that. But president will not act in his discretion. The president will give that grant, etc. only when the Council of Ministers have previously approved it. If the Council of Ministers have previously approved, which means that it is very likely that the Parliament is also going to approve it. Charged expenditures: salary of the president, salary of the comptroller and auditor general, salary of the judges, pension, all these are charged expenditures. What are expenditures made from? These policies and programs that the government comes out with. Suppose the government says that 500 crores will be allocated for a particular program. It is not a charged expenditure, it is an expenditure made from. So the Parliament will debate it, discuss it, and then vote on it. Clear? Next, financial bill. It is a bill. It is a bill which, apart from dealing with money matters, also deals with some non-money matters. Apart from dealing with money matters, also deals with non-money matters. Since it contains money matters, it is introduced only in the Lok Sabha. And on the recommendation of the president. However, because it also deals with non-money matters, Rajya Sabha enjoys equal legislative powers with the Lok Sabha. That is, after its introduction in the Lok Sabha, it is treated as an ordinary bill. All those aspects are then relevant here. So Lok Sabha passes it, Rajya Sabha may reject it. For its passage, it requires only simple majority. Even if both of them have passed it, President may enjoy veto powers. All these are relevant. Clear? See, there was a controversy in 2015-16 when there was a law passed called as the Aadhaar Act. Now, because Article 110 of the Constitution says that money bill shall have the it shall have the recommendation of the speaker. It will have the sign and seal of the speaker, and his authority is final and binding in this regard. So Aadhaar bill was introduced as a money bill. Why? Because the then speaker Sumitra Mahajan, she gave her assent to this bill as a money bill. But the opposition party, they disagreed with this idea and they said it's not a money bill, it's a financial bill. Why? Because it also includes non-money matters. And they were not wrong, because it did include non-money matters. Because it dealt with various aspects. Aadhaar, how it is to be used when the agencies, security agencies that are there, when they can use Aadhaar information to track an individual's records. All these things were mentioned in the bill. So it was also things dealing with national security, etc., etc., but it was passed as a money bill. It was challenged in the Supreme Court. It was challenged in the Supreme Court, and because Article 110 of the Constitution says the decision of the Speaker is final and binding, so the Supreme Court did not interfere with this. Though the Supreme Court entertained the petition, but did not deal with this. It allowed it to be passed as a money bill itself. You can see, and in this case, if it is misused, this provision can be misused as well, like it was done in the Aadhaar Act to bypass the Rajya Sabha, because the government did not enjoy the majority in the Rajya Sabha. They did not enjoy the majority in the Rajya Sabha, and they did not want to go through the pain of calling a joint sitting and then passing it. So they introduced it as a money bill and passed it as a money bill. Clear? Fourth, Constitutional Amendment Bill. Constitutional Amendment Bill. A bill introduced under Article 368. A bill introduced under Article 368, under Article 368, to amend one or more provisions of the Constitution, is called a Constitutional Amendment Bill. Is called a Constitutional Amendment Bill. It can be introduced in either of the house. It can be introduced in either of the house. It does not require the prior recommendation of the President, for its introduction. It has to be passed by both the houses by a special majority. Passed by both the houses by a special majority, and for those constitutional amendments, which affect the position of the states, an additional requirement of being ratified by more than 50%, of the states is required. After the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, the President shall give his assent to the bill, without using veto powers. See, this 24th Constitutional Amendment made it explicit that the President cannot use veto powers. It was not that the President has ever used veto powers in a constitutional amendment bill. It was implicit that it will never be used. But with the 24th Constitutional Amendment Act, it was made explicit that the President cannot use veto powers. Clear? These are the four kinds of bills. Now give a subheading, right? Deadlock over passage of bill. Deadlock over passage of bill. And special session. More appropriately, special sitting. Don't write special session, special sitting. Now, now we know what are these 4 bills, what is an ordinary bill, what is a money bill, what is a financial bill, and what is a constitutional amendment bill. Now, what we have discussed, it points us to a fact that when it comes to an ordinary bill, when it comes to a financial bill, and when it comes to a constitutional amendment bill, there can exist what is called as a constitutional deadlock, which means one of the house passes the bill but the other house rejects it. That can happen in case of an ordinary bill, it can happen in case of a financial bill, and it can also happen in case of a constitutional amendment bill. In money bill this is not the case. Why? Because in money bill Lok Sabha enjoys overriding powers. So leave aside money bill. Now we are left with the 3 other bills: ordinary bill, financial bill, and constitutional amendment bill. Now, if a constitutional deadlock appears in case of a constitutional amendment bill, that means one house has passed the bill but the other has rejected it. Now one house has passed the bill but other has rejected it. In that case, the bill dies. The bill dies. That means this constitutional deadlock cannot be resolved. So constitutional amendment bill, for constitutional amendment bill, if there is a deadlock, it cannot be resolved. The constitution does not provide any provision for it. So if we go back to our discussion, 64th constitutional amendment bill, 65th constitutional amendment bill, passed by the Lok Sabha, rejected by the Rajya Sabha, dealing with Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies, passed by the Rajiv Gandhi government. Because it was passed by Lok Sabha but rejected by the Rajya Sabha, the bill was dead. Clear? So when it comes to this deadlock, in constitutional amendment bills, it cannot be resolved. However, when it comes to an ordinary bill and a financial bill, this constitutional deadlock can be resolved by something called as a special sitting or a joint sitting. No, a joint sitting of both the houses. No, of joint sitting of both the houses of the parliament, that has been mentioned under Article 108 of the Constitution. Article 108 of the Constitution says that if it so happens that these 3 circumstances appear, what are those circumstances? The first house has passed the bill, the second house defeats the bill or rejects the bill. Second, the first house has passed the bill and the second house does not take any action for 6 months. Does not take any action for 6 months. And third, if the second house proposes an amendment which is rejected by the first house. So first house has passed it, goes to the second house proposes amendments, it goes back to the first house and first house rejects the amendment proposed by the second house. In these 3 cases, what we have is a constitutional deadlock between both the houses, and it can be resolved through a joint sitting. So who calls for the joint sitting? It is the president who calls for it is the president who convenes the joint sitting of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This joint sitting is presided over by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, not by the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. It is presided over by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. And if the bill here is passed by a simple majority of what? Of the joint members, not of simple majority of any one of the house, simple majority of the joint sitting that takes place. So, number of individuals who are present and voting, more than 50% of the number of members present and voting. If a bill is passed through this majority, it is deemed that it has been passed by both the houses, it goes to the president. Clear? There have been 3 instances in India. There have been 3 instances wherein this joint sitting has been convened by the president. First was in dowry prohibition bill. It was taken up in 1961. Second was something called as Banking Services Repeal Act or Bill, which was taken up in 1978, and then there was a POTA Bill, Prevention of Terrorist Activities Bill, which was taken up in the year 2002. In all these three cases, joint sitting was convened. I am not saying that it is only in these three cases. It has so happened that one of the houses has rejected the bill. Deadlock, there have been number of occasions of deadlock. In these three cases, joint sitting has been convened by the President to resolve the deadlock. Clear? This is Article 108, deadlock of over bill, and how it is resolved by a joint sitting of the House. Clear? Understood this idea? Write this down. A deadlock over a passage of a bill. A deadlock over the passage of a bill is presumed between the two houses when they finally disagree over passage of a bill. It can present itself in ordinary, financial and constitutional amendment bills, ordinary, financial and constitutional amendment bills. However, the Constitution does not provide any mechanism to resolve such a deadlock in case of a constitutional amendment bill. Next paragraph. In ordinary bill and financial bill, it can be resolved. In ordinary and financial bill, it can be resolved by calling for a joint sitting under Article 108. Under Article 108. This joint sitting can be convened. If the following events takes place. First, the second house rejects the bill. The second house rejects the bill outrightly. Second, the second house does not take any action for 6 months. After having received the bill. And third, the second house proposes amendments. To the bill which is not accepted by the originating house. Next paragraph. In such an event, the President convenes a joint sitting The President convenes a joint sitting under Article 108, presided over by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, presided over by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, and it requires a simple majority to pass the bill. So far, 3 deadlocks have been resolved. 3 deadlocks have been resolved by calling for a joint sitting. First, Dowry Prohibition Bill 1961. Dowry Prohibition Bill 1961. So see, there was a deadlock over both the houses to prohibit dowry. So that points out to the patriarchal nature of Indian society, that how to prohibit, when there was a law being enacted to prohibit dowry, there was a constitutional deadlock between Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. ठीक है, तो वो अपने बारे में सोच रहे थे. Second, Banking Service Commission repeal, in bracket cite, repeal bill 1978, and third, Pota bill 2002. Pota bill 2002. This is basically when we talk about the bill, passage of the bills and constitutional deadlock. Now let's discuss a very factual idea to end this very topic and to end our discussion on the Parliament. That topic relates to something called as, in what conditions the bills that is passed by one house and with the dissolution of Lok Sabha, which are the bills that lapse, that means they are no more, they have to be presented again after the constitution of Lok Sabha, which are the bills that that do not lapse and continue even when the Lok Sabha dissolves. Clear? So this is again for UPSC, this is a question that almost by default appears every 2 or 3 years in your prelims examination. Every 2-3 years you will find there is a question on this very aspect. Prelims, important for prelims, not for mains examination. Clear? So first give a subheading, right? When a bill does not lapse, when a bill does not lapse on dissolution of Lok Sabha, on dissolution of Lok Sabha. First point, you have to learn this. A bill that has been introduced and pending, a bill that has been introduced and is pending before the Rajya Sabha. Before the Rajya Sabha. This means what? It means the bill has been introduced in the Rajya Sabha but has not yet been passed by the Rajya Sabha. It has not yet been passed by the Rajya Sabha. A bill that has been introduced in the Rajya Sabha but has not yet been passed by the Rajya Sabha. Second, a bill that has been passed by both the houses, a bill that has been passed by both the houses and is pending before the President, and is pending before the President for his assent. for his assent. Remember pocket veto? So what happens? Even when both the houses have passed the bill, it goes to the president. President exercises pocket veto, does not do anything about it. The bill will still remain alive even if the Lok Sabha has been dissolved post that. Clear? Third, a bill over which a constitutional deadlock, has risen between the two houses, between the two houses, and the president has called for a joint sitting, and the president has called for a joint sitting, of both the houses, So if there is a constitutional deadlock, that automatically does not mean the bill will not lapse. There is a constitutional deadlock, and before the dissolution of the Lok Sabha, the president has called for a joint sitting. If the deadlock has happened and the Lok Sabha dissolves, then the bill lapses. But the constitutional deadlock has happened and the president has called for a joint sitting. In that case, the bill will not lapse. So what will happen then? Then there will be a new Lok Sabha constituted. Then there will be a joint sitting of the Lok Sabha to resolve that particular deadlock. Clear? So in these three cases, that is when first a bill has not yet reached the Lok Sabha, it is introduced in the Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha has also not passed the bill. It is still pending before the Rajya Sabha. That bill will not lapse. Secondly, a bill that has been passed by both the houses and it goes to the president for his assent. Now that bill will not lapse even if the Lok Sabha has now dissolved. And third, if there is a deadlock and the president has called for a joint sitting, that bill will also not lapse. Next subheading, when a bill lapses, with dissolution of Lok Sabha. First, when the bill has been introduced and pending, before the Lok Sabha, So if the bill is in Lok Sabha, it has not been passed by the Lok Sabha, it has been introduced in the Lok Sabha, it lapses. Second, the bill has been passed by the Lok Sabha, but is pending before the Rajya Sabha. Which means it has not been passed by both the houses, it has been only passed by the Lok Sabha. That bill also lapses. And third, if the bill has been introduced in and passed by the Rajya Sabha, but is pending before the Lok Sabha. So bill is now in the Lok Sabha. The bill also lapses. Clear? So in these three conditions each, in certain conditions, in the earlier three conditions, the bill does not lapse, and in the later three conditions, the bill lapses. With this, not only we complete our discussion on the Parliament, we also complete our discussion on the Union Executive, Union Parliament. Yes, I have not discussed two offices which you will find here. Generally it is a part of this discussion, the union, the chapter that is the union. That is, first, I have not discussed something called as the office of Attorney General. I will not be discussing that. Please go through it. I have also not discussed Article 148 of the Constitution, that is office of the Comptroller and Auditor General. I will be discussing that office later on. Clear? When I come to constitutional offices, including UPSC, this organization such as Joint Public Service Commissions, etc. In that case, I will be discussing this office called as the Comptroller and Auditor General. Next, our discussion will now move to the states, and we start with our discussion on the state executive, that is the office of the governor. Give us a heading, right? Governor. We have 3 minutes. The office of the governor. See, the office of the governor of a state, like the office of the president, has been conceived that this office will act as a ceremonial head of the state. So the office of the governor is the state executive, he is the state executive, and he is the ceremonial executive. He is the ceremonial executive. He is appointed by the president. He is appointed by the president and works on the pleasure of the president. He works on the pleasure of the president. Now, what is the meaning of this term pleasure? I have already discussed that. So, though the Constitution prescribes that the office of the governor will have a tenure of 5 years, the Constitution says that the governor is to have a tenure of 5 years. But at any given point of time within this 5 years, he can either be transferred or removed from office. The president will not give any due reasons why he has she has removed the governor or transferred the governor. But the Constitution prescribes for a tenure of 5 years. After the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1956, the office of the governor, one governor can act as as the governor of 2 or more states. Previously this was not the case, and the governor used to act as the governor of only one state. Now the Constitution prescribes that a single individual can act as a governor of 2 or more states. And UTs, that means he can also act as the governor or lieutenant governor of a concerned UT. So he can act as a governor of 2 states, more than 2 states, or for that matter 1 state, 1 UT, whatever the permutation and combination may prescribe. Clear? So 2 or more states he can act as a governor of 2 or more states. Interestingly, the office of the governor, though it has been conceived as a ceremonial position, but the manner in which the office has been conceived, the governor of the state does not always act merely as a ceremonial position, and he in certain cases enjoys some important powers. However, because the governor, if you look at the Constitution has conceived the office of the governor in a dual role. First, he acts as the ceremonial head of the state, and second, ceremonial executive head of the state, and secondly, he also acts as the representative of the center in the state. He also acts as the representative of the center in the state. I am not using the term agent of the center. I am specifically saying that he acts as the representative of the center in the states. Why? Because when we say representative of the center, it actually points out to the positive role of the governor, and when we say the governor acts as the agent of the center, it is a negative connotation. It is a negative connotation. Clear? But why is he being conceived as in this dual responsibility? and what is his constitutional position, I'll be discussing in the next class. So tomorrow when we meet, we complete our discussion on the office of the governor, and if the time allows, we also complete our discussion on the state legislature. Thank you.